Hey there, Friday Night Movie fans. Welcome to a very special episode of the podcast. We got to interview Steve Kostanski, the director of the amazing, hilarious, scary horror comedy film PG Psycho Goreman, which everybody knows that I loved. Highly recommend you go and check it out. The Blu-ray drops on March 16th, so you can pre-order your copy, listen to this episode, get primed to watch it. Then when your copy arrives, enjoy the movie, then come back and listen to this episode again. Steve was phenomenal. He was really fun. He even played a little Buy Renter Meh and did a comparathon with us. So we are hugely thankful to him for making the time, and we hope you enjoy this really fun episode. At the beginning of the episode, Becky, Lily, and I will do our usual chit-chat introduction. Then Steve comes on, and then we wrap up with the usual shouts-outs and recs. So again, this was a ton of fun. We hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Check out Psycho Goreman. Blu-ray comes out on March 16th. Here we are, and welcome to a very special episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. In this episode, we will be exclusively speaking about PG Psycho Goreman, a movie you know that we loved and that I have been talking about nonstop, because on March 16th, the Blu-ray of PG Psycho Goreman is out, and in conjunction with this exciting release, director of the film, Steve Kostanski, has agreed to come on the Friday Night Movie Podcast. So we'll be getting to that in a little bit. But first, Lily, Becky, going to dispense with how you're doing. Your brother, I know that I brought you this movie, but this movie, it found me. I don't exactly know how. It's about
It's like the
kids
algorithm fairies, like sprinkled dust on you and then presented you with a movie that was made literally for you.
This is a film about a couple of kids who seem very Canadian. It's not verified that this movie takes place in Canada, but they are very Canadian. And they find in their backyard, they dig up a demon for which they are able to control this demon, and they rename the demon, right? They give him the name Psycho Goreman. And they go on tons of fun adventures, and there's blood, and there's guts, and there's humor, and there's love. And it is from this director, Steve Kostanski, who has made a series of really funny and brilliant comedy horror pieces, of which I have immersed myself in. Lily, what's your take on this film?
My take is that this is a genre that I think is incredibly difficult to do well. Because, pulling from an interview that I heard from the director, you could, if the people in the movie are laughing at the movie, right? If they're like too wink to the camera, it's just like the cheese, it's so cheesy and it looks like they're too in on it, and it's not an enjoyable experience. It just doesn't, hit the mark. And then if it's too scary and there's not enough comedy, then it's not really part of that genre. And then that's like, some horror movies have some funny scenes, but like it's like a weird mix. Like how Scary Us is or Get Out, like it's not too much comedy. It's not meant to be in there, right? It's like a very delicate balance. And what I think is amazing about this is that it's so taken seriously during the movie with all the characters and the actors and the special effects and everything, that you're really like in the world of this family. I said, like, at one point, this movie, I thought, like, for a second, I was like, oh, this movie's about marriage or something.
Because of the husband and wife.
The husband and the wife. And like, there's a lot going on, but it was highly enjoyable. You know what I mean? And I think that it's just a great example of the genre. And I don't think you see that very much anymore at all.
It's hard to land. Becky, what did you think?
I think this film is all about the practicals. It's all about the practical effects, costumes. I think from what I know of people who are really passionate about this genre, they are craftsmen in a way that doesn't really exist anymore, which is that of actual like not using CG, like actually using costumes and creatures and like I was saying, like practical creature effects, like practical creature effects. And I think it makes me think of all these other like craftsmanships and trades that are slowly like dying out in the digital world. And so it's like this, it's very sacred in a sense. And so this film is all about that. So whether or not you like this genre, and I think even if this is not your cup of tea, it's still, you would still like this movie because it is so funny and different from everything else you're probably watching. And if you do like the genre, then I think it's a fabulous example of what can be done. But regardless of where you fall on that, it's worth watching for how well executed these practical effects are, the creature effects are. I think other than this, like, where do you see stuff like this? Jim Henson? I mean, like, that's about it. It's pretty miraculous to think this obviously has nowhere near the budget of something like Dark Crystal, but they're doing so much with what they have. And you see true creativity and boundaries really being pushed. So for me, that's what this film was about.
I think you hit on something. I mean, I'm sure filmmakers all want bigger budgets, right? Like,
yeah.
But there is something to be said when filmmakers achieve something amazing within those limits. I think of the first Raid movie, right? The Raid Redemption, which was done on a very low budget, and it's one of the best action movies ever made. It makes it on another level impressive when they do some of the things that they do in this movie. The head explosions, the creature effects, all of the different gallery of creatures. Like, I haven't seen such intricate designs of different creatures. Like, these guys who made this are really artists. And then the other thing that I'll say for me that just sticks out, and now having watched a few films by this crew, the chemistry and the way they pull together the cast is especially awesome. There's no flat actors. Everyone feels like they're supposed to be in this show, and even though you've basically never heard of anybody that's in it, they really land. And the main kid, she is so incredibly funny. I have to get her name right. Anita Jose Hanna as Mimi is amazing. And then I would say the other MVP is definitely Adam Brooks.
Big time.
As Greg. Now, Adam Brooks has been, so I watched a few of Steve Kostanski's movies leading up to this, and he's part of a crew of film directors called Astron 6, and their entire premise was to make VHS style 80s-ish movies, and they've made a series of movies and trailers. And I watched this one called Manborg, in which Adam Brooks plays two characters. And then I watched this one called Father's Day, which is, Manborg is very accessible. It's like a super weird, awesome sci-fi with stop motion anime. By the way, stop motion creature effects. Do we even see that anymore? Incredible.
Yeah.
And then Father's Day has some of it too, but Father's Day is an extremely gory horror movie, like more gory than I can.
Like borderline body horror.
Like over the edge of body horror.
Oh,
okay. Like Hostel kind of like stuff I don't watch. Yeah. But Adam Brooks, but that's not what all of the movie is. I would say like that's like a quarter of the movie. A lot of it is Adam Brooks like as this deadpan hero with an eye patch who's like searching for revenge against the serial killer. And he is totally different than he is in PG Psycho Goreman. And he's also hilarious. And go back to Lily's point, he's not really winking at the camera. He's playing it as if he's just like a cheesy actor in the 80s making a movie like this and taking it really seriously, when obviously this movie is meant to be like a certain amount of a joke. So I think he's a huge gem in this film. All right, Friday Night Movie fans, we're going to pause our conversation there and bring you our interview with Steve Kostanski, director of PG Psycho Goreman, out on Blu-ray on March 16th. Hey, Steve.
Okay. Hi, how's it going?
Doing Steve. All. Welcome to the Friday Night Movie Podcast. This is a podcast that was created by three siblings who grew up in Montreal. I'm Shy. I'm going to invite my other sisters to say hello.
Hi, I'm Becky.
Hi, I'm Lily.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Becky is based 2 doors down from me. Lily is based in the Canary Islands, and this show is all about our family and our love of pop culture, and we loved Psycho Goreman. So
sweet.
Congratulations on the film. And if I could start, I know we don't have a ton of time. If I could, and then we've watched a bunch of your interviews, so if it's all right with you, we'd love to kind of jump right in. And we've been talking up the movie anyway.
Good.
We grew up renting movies on VHSs in Montreal and being traumatized by the boxes, the contents. You've talked about how that is one of your inspirations. Do you have siblings and that you were growing up renting movies like this with? And how do they feel about PG Psycho Goreman and your general filmmaking?
I have an older brother, and he definitely influenced some of my tastes growing up. He's more into music than into film. So the big one from him that I got that traumatized me was Pink Floyd The Wall. I saw that at a young age, and it really messed me up, as that movie does. A lot of it really came from my dad and my friends, I found. My dad, almost as a joke, would show me stuff that would freak me out, especially anything animated. I remember him showing me heavy metal at a very young age. And just to be like, hey, Steve, you like Saturday morning cartoons? Check this out. And, being bombarded with cartoon violence and nudity and being like, I don't know how I should feel about any of this. But yeah, also just my friends, they were a big influence because they had older siblings that were movie nuts. And so specifically my friend Kieran, he would loan me movies, and we'd go rent movies from the local video store and watch stuff that was way above our acceptable age range of movie. So yeah, that's where a lot of it came from, was watching movies with him. He's the one that introduced me to all the Full Moon and Empire Pictures stuff. And very vivid memories of him explaining to me the Puppet Master series and being a little freaked out, but also a little allured by it, a little enticed because it sounded super fun. So yeah, he was a big influence. As far as what my family thinks of PG, I mean, they seem to like it. They're always hypercritical of everything that I make, which is good. I mean, I like having people that are straight with me about my projects, but they definitely appreciated what I was going for, and my brother loved the music in the movie, so he'll be getting the soundtrack.
Oh, the music is killer. The music
is so good.
Amazing.
Yeah, Blitz Berlin, the group that composed the score, really knocked it out of the park. I gave them a very kind of high bar. I set a very high bar for what I wanted the score to be on this movie. I told them I kind of wanted to feel a little bit like Highlander at times. So basically being could you make music that rocks as hard as Queen rocks? It's maybe not the most reasonable direction to give on a low budget project where you don't have a lot of time and resources, but I think they totally hit the mark and did a fantastic job and made the movie as anthemic as it needs to be. It's a style of score that I don't think a lot of movies have anymore, where it feels you brought in a rock band to kind of compose and also just have original songs thrown into the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a drummer, and I will never forget the iconic, what I think is an iconic image now of PG behind the drums in the band. But speaking of, I would say, the challenges of the budget and all those things, Becky, my sister, who is a filmmaker, definitely has some questions about the effects and all of that. Beck, over to you.
Yeah. So I've worked in production for a very long time now, but I'm also the youngest of the three of us, so I'm the biggest baby when it comes to watching scary stuff. And I will say that practical effects are just more terrifying than CG. Why is that?
Well, I mean, a real thing is scary, and a thing that is fake is immediately, you can immediately dismiss that, no matter how good the CG is. And so I find, practical effects just on a very primal, instinctual level are always going to be more unsettling, even if it looks fake. Like, that's what's crazy about it, is like you'll watch movies where the effects maybe don't look real, but it can still be bothersome, where I find that never happens with CG. If anything, I'm observing CG and being like, oh, they did a really good job on that. Those tentacles are like real gross and slimy looking. But I'm never like in the moment in the story being horrified, which is like what the intention is, you know? Like, I find CG is more impressive, and I'm just observing it as like a piece of art and not as like a thing that's happening in the story that I'm engrossed in. And I find, just as a director, having practical effects on set is always better for everyone. Like, it's, you know, having a creature on your location that's being hit by the lighting of your location, like it's affected by all the dynamics of the space, as well as being something that actors can interact with directly, is always better, because everyone's in the moment together experiencing it, as opposed to everyone having to pretend that something is happening that is not happening. Like, pretending there's a monster there, but being like, yeah, but react to that tennis ball on a stick. To me, that's just not the same. Like, you need to have a real thing there for people to perform against and react to. And then, you know, even just for like your camera operators and things, like something that they can shoot and have in the frame is always ideal. Like, that's the way it should always be.
Well, your cast was just amazing, and I myself have immersed myself in your Astronaut 6 work. Lily, my sister, who sees a lot of horror movies, had a lot of great things to say about the cast. Lil, over to you.
So yeah, amazing casting, amazing actors. It was just so fun to watch everybody. And of course, Nita, Jose, Hannah, and Owen Mir as Mimi and Luke were so great. But to me, I just can't, I kept texting my brother and sister that keep going back to Adam Brooks's performance as Greg and how amazing he was as the dad. And we wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about the clear chemistry you have with him, because I mean, he's hilarious, but he takes it so seriously at the same time, and it's so well done. And just kind of ask you a little bit about that, like, working relationship from your other movies as well.
I think for me as a director, like, I want to just emulate the experience of watching movies with my friends in every scenario that I'm in. And so having existing relationships, like existing friendships with cast and crew, is super important. Like, if I could just keep using the same people over and over again and just like swap them around in different roles, I totally would. And that's definitely been the experience with the Astron 6 guys, because we have that friendship and that camaraderie. And so, like, I've known Adam for so long now. Like, I think we first met, it had to have been like 2005, 2006 maybe. We met through a mutual friend and realized we were both making shoddy, low-budget, like, shot-on-video horror short films and wanted to collaborate on stuff. So we've been working together ever since. And yeah, he's just always been there as a collaborator and as a friend, and I love having him around. Just having a presence like that, like somebody that I know and have that kind of comfort with, is super important on all my projects. So yeah, it was great to be able to like bring him along on this and have him, you know, play this great character that I wrote very much just for him, but also just having him on set as somebody to bounce ideas off of and get opinions on, because he's very straight with me. He'll always tell me exactly what he's thinking. He won't bullshit me on stuff. So yeah, it's great having that second opinion on things, somebody who can, like, what if they think something's working or not.
Well, he's terrific, and when we release our full episode, if you end up getting a chance to listen, you'll hear us talk about his versatility from all the different films. Now, if you're up for it, we always like to play some of our signature pop culture games with guests. I've got two prepared for you. One is called the Comparathon. Okay, and a Comparathon is, I'm going to give you a name of a director, generally in the horror, sci-fi genre, particularly ones that I know from having read some of your interviews that you're interested in, and then some others. And you essentially just pick one or the other, and we go down the list and we see who your champion is. And if we have time, I've got a second one.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So first one on the list is Hitchcock, and it's Hitchcock versus Carpenter. John Carpenter.
Carpenter.
Carpenter versus Wes Craven.
Carpenter.
Carpenter versus Hooper.
Carpenter.
Carpenter versus Steven Spielberg, because, Jaws.
And E.T.
Carpenter.
Sure.
All right. Carpenter versus James Cameron from your beloved Terminator 2.
James Cameron.
Okay. Cameron. Now, this is the aliens versus aliens question. Cameron versus Ridley Scott.
Cameron.
Cameron versus Jordan Peele.
Cameron.
Cameron versus Roger Corman. No relation to us, even though that is our father's name.
Cameron.
Cameron versus Clive Barker.
Cameron.
Cameron versus Rob Zombie.
Cameron.
Cameron versus James Wan.
Cameron.
All right, 4 more. Savini, Tom Savini.
Like Cameron versus Savini?
Yeah.
Cameron.
Cameron versus George Romero.
Cameron.
Cameron versus Cronenberg.
Cameron.
All right, and now versus someone who I think you embody the spirit of, one of my favorite directors of all time. I hope you take this as a compliment. Cameron versus the great Sam Raimi.
Cameron.
Wow. All right.
Wow,
James
that
Cameron.
we know how important that film and is to you. This is huge.
Like, come on, guys! Like Terminator and Terminator 2. Like,
I mean, we agree. You're
agree.
not. We're not going to fight you on it. We think the great answers. Great answers.
like you cannot top that guy. I'm sorry. He's made the best movies. I don't know how he did it, but he did. So you can't top him.
All right, with our 2 minutes left, we're going to soak up as much as we can with you. We love your love of the old properties, the Masters of the Universe, the Ninja Turtles, the Thundercats. All right, I'm going to put 3, or I don't know if you love the Thundercats. I put that one in there, but I'm going to put those 3 in front of you, okay? Rank them. Our ranking system is buy, rent, and meh, meaning one of these you'll buy. You want to make that property, your own version, whether it's straight or a horror comedy or another version. One is kind of middle of the road rent, and one of them is meh. And tell us why. Masters of the Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or the Thundercats?
Okay, so buy would be Masters of the Universe because I just love that kind of epic fantasy world, and I could spend the rest of my life in that universe. And then Ninja Turtles, I would rent. I mean, I do have a soft spot for Ninja Turtles. And meh for Thundercats, since I've never really been that into Thundercats. So, yeah.
All right. We've got a couple minutes left. I would love to know just what is the question you wish you were answering about PG Psycho Goreman, which we will mention again. We've mentioned this already in our episode or recording, out on Blu-ray March 16th. Everyone should get it. I pre-ordered mine a long time ago. I also ordered one of those posters that I believe you signed.
Oh, nice.
So totally all in on the release of the film. But what's a question you wish folks were asking you?
I don't know. Everybody's asking such a wide range of questions. Though nobody is asking me if the line "it's fun, it's hip, it's wow, and it's now." Nobody's asking me if that's a Spider-Man 3 reference, which it is.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm surprised that nobody picked up on that yet. Like, at least not that I've seen that bit. And I think I'm quoting it right, where Ted Raimi is like pitching to J. Jonah Jameson, like the new kind of slogan for the newspaper. So
Raimi, so that's a nod to the Raimis?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. That makes me happy because I could talk to you for hours. Literally, I know we don't have time, but I'm sure there's lots of folks saying Evil Dead or, immediately when they talk to you. So it's nice to know that they're in your thing of influence. Well, look, Steve, Steve, I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to be just tremendously grateful for you spending this time with us and for this film. It is so much fun. It's got a little bit of everything, and we cannot wait to see what you're making next.
Oh, thank you very much. It was great chatting with you guys.
So
Thanks for
great
joining
having you.
us.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. we'll do this again soon sometime.
Oh man,
we love that.
would love
We
that.
would love that. You are welcome on the pod anytime.
Anytime.
We'd love to have you back for a full
Thanks for
episode.
making.
Thank
Thank
you very much.
All right, best
All
of
right.
luck, Steve. We
Hope to
can't
speak
wait
to
to
you
see what
again
comes next.
soon. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, we'll do this again soon. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay,
All right.
bye.
So we just finished speaking to Steve Kostanski, director of Psycho Goreman, and that guy is so cool. How much do you just want to hang out and be one of his friends that gets to be in his movies?
I'd love to do a set visit on something he's shooting. That would be
Sure.
like,
But because
I've been on a lot of sets, and that's a set I want to be on.
But I feel like because if you visit his set, they're gonna be like, "Hey, can you help us paint this over here?" Like,
No, they'll be
Yeah.
like, carry this bucket of blood if you don't mind.
right?
I
Like,
would
just
love to
flash
You
some
should
blood while you
go in rain boots just in case, and some
Right.
coveralls because you're gonna
That's-
get something.
I feel like
splattered.
that's how they work, and that's like super fun.
It just made me so happy to hear who he loved in the films, because Carpenter, Cameron, Sam Raimi, I feel like all three of those directors are such a big part of what I saw in the film, but I don't want to be a jerk and be like, so what is it like to be the next Sam Raimi kind of guy?
Right.
But clearly, like, he has such love
and I feel like he does it well. He does like I
think he does I don't think it's like the gore and like the monsters and all that. I think is wonderful and the influences are amazing. But I think personally, the hardest part is to land the comedy, and I think he's doing an amazing
favorite
job with the
comedic
writing and
moment. Can we
directing,
go
because as great as the
around
actors are,
I mean,
to wrap it up? Can we say our favorite comedic moment?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite comedic moment, I will say, is just anything around the Warrior's death.
Oh my! That was what I was going to say. The Warrior's death.
No,
I will give you a Warrior's death. No.
I have a very
the fact that they repeat it.
different
I
one.
was losing it. I was laughing.
That
so
was very
hard.
funny, but like my favorite thing was when the parents first meet PG and he's like freaking out at them, and the dad's like, she did that, was her, like, to the mom, like he's standing behind the mom being like, no, she was the one like that pissed you off, not me. And like he's totally throwing her to a monster, I thought. And the fact that when he's on the toilet and like he gets up and he has to go find and help save PG, he doesn't wipe. Like, that to me is very specific. I was like, oh my God, he didn't wipe. He's just going.
I know the Warrior's death and the repeated use of that was
That
so
was
well
fantastic.
done.
Well, let's quickly just say our recs and shout outs of what we've been watching. I have been watching all of his movies, as I mentioned, but the one I didn't mention, which I absolutely loved, it's a short film. It's from the Astron 6 crew, so the folks he made Manborg and Father's Day with. It's called Cowboys, an American folktale, and it is animated. And it's got some gore in it, but in general, it's got like this sort of Hateful Eight, but much funnier vibe to it. It's Adam Brooks and Jeremy Gillespie and Matthew Kennedy, who are the kind of core three actors that are in those films. And that's going to be my big rec for this week. And we started Coming to America Part 2 last night.
Oh, fun.
And the first half, Allie and I were laughing really hard, and it was like a nice nostalgic, update of a really fun movie, and it was much better than I expected, with all the people being like, meh. I liked the first half a lot.
It's great.
What about you, Lo?
Well, in the horror, on that note, we started this like new Sam Bean. Is it Sam Bean? No, Sam's not the right word. Sean. Thank you. I was like, Sam sounds weird. Sean Bean.
Sam Bean is a little animated character.
Right. I don't know.
green
my
hat.
head had Sean, but it came out as Sam. Sean Bean from Lord of the Rings and obviously Ned Stark. He's in a show called The Frankenstein Chronicles, which is very creepy and takes place in early, I think it's like 1827, so or early-ish 19th century London, and there's like a serial killer and there's like a Frankenstein theme going through it, and very creepy, but the first episode was cool, so yeah, we're watching that.
All right, keep me posted, because I'm not going to get in on
I
that
do
unless
not
I
think
know it's worth it.
I think it might be a little too scary.
Frankenstein is not a horror thing I'm super into. Dracula, I'm more into.
Well, I think it's inspired by. It's like it takes place in like
Frankenstein
real.
over Dracula. Dracula is really
Do you know,
scares
so I
the
will say,
bejesus out of me. I can't do Dracula.
There is there's someone that I have been engaging with on Clubhouse. Her name is Antonia Carlotta, and she has a YouTube channel that is devoted to the history of like old Hollywood, particularly on the Universal monsters. And I was watching her thing on the Phantom of the Opera last night. That's really good. But she goes into like all of this stuff. She would be a fun person to talk about the Frankenstein show with. Maybe I'll convince her.
You have to watch it.
Becky, what about you? What are you watching?
PG Psycho Goreman. That's what I was watching this week. I mean,
and we watched some other
and
stuff
I
together.
watched my first episode of Bob's Burger, and I laughed my face off. And it just
was it the one with Jose in it? Jose's in that show.
It's the
I'll get to
the episode I watched was so good, and it just proves my point, which is that Kristen Schaal is the funniest, and she just everything she does makes me cackle. So yeah.
All right, Beck, where can people follow you?
At Paper BK Princess on Twitter.
And Lily.
Chichi CHICHIK Gomez on Twitter.
And you can follow me at Pancake and the number 4 table on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow all the Friday Night Movie shenanigans at Friday Night Movie on Twitter and Instagram, or FridayNightMoviePod.com. Check out Psycho Goreman, PG Psycho Goreman, March 16th, coming out on Blu-ray. If you haven't already watched it on demand because we've been talking about it so much, director Steve Kostanski was with us today, and we love when the Friday Night Movie family supports our awesome guests. And this movie is just a hilarious, amazing, horrifying riot all into one. On a serious note, there's no easy segue out of Psycho Goreman to the real world. On a serious note, our family supports the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the Equal Justice Initiative. And please go and check out those organizations. And with that, our theme music will kick in.
Actually, before theme music kicks in, I have one more thing.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, a segue.
You guys were hurrying me.
I know. Sorry. This episode was about fictional monsters, and we don't talk about serious, relevant or serious things on this pod, except that I do want to promote a crowdfunding campaign for a documentary film that I have become very, very deeply moved by and extremely passionate about supporting. It is called And So I Stayed. We will put up the link in our show notes to the crowdfunding campaign. It is it's a difficult but incredibly important film that's about survivors of domestic violence who are unjustly incarcerated for killing their abusers in self-defense. The filmmakers are two people I deeply respect, Daniel Nelson and Natalie Patillo. And I really I can't say enough about it. I want to see this film finished. I want to see it in front of as many viewers and as wide as an audience as possible. I think it is incredibly relevant and important, unlike this pod. So
you're right. Our podcast, our podcast, not this episode. This episode. Just in general.
The general, goofiness of our podcast. So we'll put up a link to that. Please, if you have some time, go read about it. There are ways to support the film that are not just with money. And they have a whole list on that page as well of how you can just support them and support getting this story out there. So, that's all. Now we can dance to the music and say goodbye.
Yes, now we dance to the music and we say goodbye. Good job. Bye.